Jamie, welcome to InvestRealEstateTV.com. We're talking about something new, something valuable. Let's talk about you. How you got into this exploring the universe.
Well, I think I'm like pretty much everybody, right? At some point you go, wait, how did I get here? How did the Earth form? How did the universe form? What was happening before the universe? You know, the biggest questions you could possibly ask. I was asking those same questions. So I started reading books and I didn't really understand. So I was like, maybe I'll read a book that's about physics. Somebody eventually said, you should read Tao of Physics by Fritjof Capra. I was like, oh yeah, I'll check that out. Very interesting book because it was in a nutshell saying that ancient Eastern mysticism was saying the exact same thing as modern physics. And so there's like a quote of Lao Tzu and a quote of Einstein on the same page. And I read back and forth and I'm like, Tzu and Einstein saying that might be really fundamental. So I'm going to keep looking into that. So then I started reading all these other books about physics for the layman because I'm not a physicist, I'm a musician. And then I eventually, after reading a lot of books for the layman, I saw this guy, Nassim Haramein, a physicist who was speaking at a festival that I was playing at. And Nassim connected more dots and made more sense on a broad sense of talking about the whole universe than any of these books. I mean, the books were really focused, but Nassim was going all the way to very esoteric, spiritual kind of information, and then to very, very technical mathematical equations about fundamental particles and, you know, gravitational force and all this kind of stuff. So it was fascinating. And long story short, which is a very long story really, is that I learned how to present Nassim's material because I was so interested in what he was talking about, and he needed help because like somebody like Nassim Haramein or any physicist could spend the rest of their life explaining what they already figured out. And what they really need to do is keep working and have somebody else explain what they already figured out. And so that was my job. And I've done lots of presentations worldwide explaining Nassim Haramein's unified field theory, which is basically a theory that explains everything in the universe. You can observe anything and it's going to fit into the theory. And that's what, you know, Einstein was working on until the day he died. Literally the day he died, he was still trying to figure out unified field theory. So Nassim has kind of taken Einstein's work and people like Walter Russell and Nikola Tesla and combined it and added things to it to make it more accurate and more representative of space-time. And he's really cracked the code and really connected so many dots that it's had profound implications on technology, people's personal belief systems and how they feel about themselves. I mean, it has wide-ranging implications, not just from physics and chemistry, but the importance of describing the physics of the universe. Because once you understand the foundational physics of the universe, you can start to explain almost everything else. You know, physics is the study of observing the universe, making measurements, collecting data, and then trying to make a statement like, oh, I think gravity works like this, or I think space is like this. And so Nassim looked really deeply into the foundations of physics and realized that some of the foundational things that we were told and that we thought, even very recently, is turning out to be incorrect. So there's quite a mission just keeping up with the pace of new discovery in the world of physics and technology in general is a challenge because of the rate at which the new discoveries are happening. And then some of these discoveries have profound implications on things that we assumed were correct from a long time ago. Stuff that was cemented into textbooks, like this is for sure correct. You can get a PhD and answer the questions and you'll get your A on the test. But it turned out maybe some of that's not correct because as we discover new aspects of the universe, we realize it's a lot more complex than we thought. And we can't just simplify it and dumb it down. One classic example of this is dark matter. You've heard about dark matter and billions of dollars looking for dark matter. And Nassim Haramein's unified field theory basically says, there is no dark matter. You guys are looking for something that doesn't exist because there were mathematical assumptions made about calculations from a while back that you assume are correct, but you made a very big error and you didn't correct it. So no wonder you can't find 95% of the universe, right? Like you would think, oh, look, my unified field theory predicts a certain amount of mass in the universe. Oh, cool, let's get on our telescopes. And then they go, we're missing some of the matter. Really, how much are you missing? We're missing 95%.
Wow.
They didn't go, maybe we should go back to that equation because that doesn't, like, why would we be missing so much of the, and to make that story really short, because this is a very long technical explanation of why they're not finding it, it's that space is not empty. And we knew that. They kind of know that. A physicist will say, yeah, space isn't empty. You know, you can pull all the air out of there and like have no molecules and create a perfect vacuum. But even in a perfect vacuum with no air, no atmosphere, no molecules, there's energy in there still. You can't get rid of it. And it's had a lot of names over a long period of time. They used to call it the ether. They called it the plenum. Then they called it like the 0 point field, the quantum foam, space, the vacuum, the source field, God, mana, prana, chi, all these different civilizations. And then all these physicists have had different names for the same thing. And it's called space. The one thing that is everywhere you go, from the subquantum to the multiverse bigger than our universe, space is there. So if you want to figure out the physics of the universe, you probably want to pay attention to the 99.99999% of the universe that's space. Because atoms, the stuff that we're made of, are 99.99999% space. They're only 0.000001% stuff, if you can call it that, right? Protons, neutrons, and electrons, which aren't exactly solid. So like, what are we? What is going on? We're just made of a bunch of little tiny vibrations. That's right.
Wow.
That's what this is. They just came out with an article showing that the crust of Mars and the crust of the Earth is showing stress breakages and geometries of a sphere that's expanding, not just something like mud cracking on the surface or something like that. So a long story short is that Nassim is rewriting physics. He's pulling the rug out on the standard model in his first slide of his presentation, being like, I think we're wrong about the dimensions. I think we're wrong about black holes. And it's all one thing, and it's a scale. Everything's related to each other in scales. It's embedded fractal. The universe is the multiverse, and inside the universe are these gigantic supercluster things like Laniakea. And inside of the supercluster is the smaller cluster called the Virgo supercluster. And inside there are these little things called galaxies. And inside those galaxies are even smaller things called stars. And then you get the planets, and then you get the biology scale. And then you get down to like the molecule size and the cell size. Then you get down to atoms. Then you get down to protons and neutrons and electrons. Then you get to the Planck that makes up the proton. And there's probably sub-Plancks, smaller than the Plancks. Nassim calculated that they're like so much smaller than the Planck that the Planck is halfway in size from the sub-Planck to the universe.
My God.
So all bets are off because physicists can say, we think we understand how stuff works. We just have to find the 95% of the universe that's missing. Or you could say, that seems like there's a chance that's incorrect. Maybe we should look for a new model. And when Nassim found this new model, guess what? The way those little proton Planck spherical units that make up the proton, the way those overlap each other, perfectly filling the space, that's a 3D flower of light. Oh, so wait, you mean ancient civilizations around the world just by coincidence happened to put the geometry of space-time onto everything? No, they knew that was the geometry of space-time. That's why all these temples, pyramids, all this ancient information is relating back to this very foundational geometry of the structure of space. Now, they didn't have telescopes. So then you're like, how did they know that? And Nassim is one of these guys that dares to stick his neck out and say, yeah, maybe they got this information, from somewhere else. Like not from our tetra, meaning not from the Earth. It was extra tetra, extra terrestrials. It's so important to be doing what we're doing right now. I applaud you for reaching out to me and being like, that guy seems like he's got some cool information. And I feel like people need to hear something different than what they've been hearing. So I'm going to call that guy. Hey, Jamie, will you be on my show? I'm in Guatemala. I'm like, sure.
Yeah, man.
So like, thank you for doing this, because like all of us
you.
need to like share the most resonant, most correct information to reduce the amount of confusion.
Exactly, man.
Because then once you reduce the confusion, then people are like, oh, I shouldn't be violent. I shouldn't be mad. I shouldn't make fun of those people. People will get nicer. They'll start like making technologies that work in harmony with nature instead of blowing up nature. I mean,
exactly, man.
Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah.
So I just thank you for doing it.
Oh no, man! Thank you. And this the unified theory. I mean, it's all about energy and structure and patterns, and everything goes with the flower of life and all in between. Or can we talk about a little bit of that?
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, there's only one thing, right? It's the universe or it's space, right? And so you're like, well, what is space? Let me try to figure out what space. Is there a structure to space? What's the study of structure in space called again? Oh yeah, geometry. Geometry is the study of the structure of space. So the question is, what's the geometry of the structure of space-time itself? Is space-time perfectly smooth? It turns out no, it's granular. It's got quanta, just like light. Light isn't just smooth. It's got these little quanta that was coined by Einstein. The quanta of light is a photon. The quanta of a proton, which is most of the mass of an atom, which is the mass that we call matter, right? That structure is as well just space, and it's a geometry, and so it's quantized. The proton is quantized into Planck spherical units, is what they're called, PSUs. That's Max Planck. So it's a sphere with the Planck distance as its radius. You can't see anything smaller than the Planck because a photon of light can't bounce off of it. It's too small.
Huh.
So it's a fundamental boundary condition. From our perspective, at our scale, with our senses and our technology, we cannot measure anything smaller than what we can see. And we can't see something if a photon of light can't bounce off of it in your eye. So you can find flower of life under the paw of the Fu dog guarding the Forbidden City in China. You can find it on the side of the rock in Abydos in Egypt. You can find it all across Turkey. You can find it all around the Mediterranean. That symbol is all over the place. And it's not a coincidence that ancient civilizations knew that symbol. And it has such profound implications, because then you can go back and relook at our history and realize, oh, we were way more advanced than we thought. Pyramids might not have been built in the dynastic times. Khufu was a pharaoh who's attributed to build that thing, but Khufu might have just really liked it and said, I want to put my boat next to it and put a statue. I mean, he could have fixed it up. In other words, those pyramids might have been there for thousands of years before dynastic Egypt, and they just set up camp next to it and tried to learn how they built it. And they tried experimenting, and they built the step pyramid in Saqqara as their first attempt, and it didn't work out. And then they tried the bent pyramid and the red pyramid, and so who knows? There's just a lot of interesting information. I've studied especially the Great Pyramid in Egypt quite a bit. I've been 3 times. I have a course, an online course called Ancient Egypt Revisited in the Resonance Academy, which is Nassim Haramein's online school. It's called Resonance Academy. It's resonancescience.org. And there's some great courses in there, from a free course that is Nassim Haramein's life's work. So if you're interested in the kind of stuff I'm talking about, you'd be really interested in this free course. All you have to do is put it in your email. They send you the button and you go into this course, and you can just go through. It's Nassim's life's work, 30 years of work worth of research in a free course. And that's resonancescience.org.
I've been watching all the videos, and you guys said that all the civilizations were interconnected, but we don't know how, right? I mean, because it's the same patterns, the same structures, and the same energy path. Do you think all the civilizations in the world, in one time, they will be interconnected?
Yeah, I would say that there was probably a civilization that came and influenced and interacted with all the cultures around the world. over long periods of time, and they may have come and gone. It's very hard to reconstruct this because after a certain age, if you didn't write something down on stone, it's gone, right? If there was any documentation, whatever, 25,000 years ago, if it was written on papyrus, if it was written on leather, that's long gone. And so we have rock.
Yeah, because
everything. Go to Peru, there's evidence around the world that we can see, which is rocks. There's lots of megalithic structures that have been left by all these civilizations. And when you look at those, then you realize they must have had some crazy advanced technology, because we'd have a really, really difficult time building some of this stuff today with, Apache cargo helicopters. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we were all told when we were kids. We all answered correctly on the tests, but it's all.
How amazing, man. How eye-opener. And why is so important for humanity to know this info?
I think that most people think that their body ends right here. Like, that's my body. But we know from physics that energy fields, frequencies, electromagnetic fields, gravity. I'm being affected by gravity right now. And your body, because you have mass, all mass creates gravity. You have your own gravitational field. You have your own electromagnetic field. The strongest electromagnetic field of your body is actually your heart, not your brain.
Wow.
And then people are thinking, oh yeah, consciousness is in the brain. But we've been looking in there. It's not. Consciousness is probably in the field. And our brains are picking up that like a radio.
Wow.
Like, you're listening to me maybe on a computer, but I'm not in the computer, right? I'm way over here, and I'm sending this information through a field.
Oh, man.
Like, I'm literally talking like this, and it's vibrating the air, and it hits the microphone, and it translates it into electrochemical impulses, which sends it to a satellite, sends it back down to you, and then your computer's recording this. And later on, you're going to put these ones and zeros somewhere else, and somebody's going to press play, and the computer's going to vibrate the air. And those ones and zeros that I'm creating now are going to hit their ear and vibrate the hair from the inside of their ear. And then that gets translated by these little hairs into electrochemical impulses. And then they hear what I'm saying, and they go, oh, cool, I understand what he's saying. That is a miracle. It's unbelievable that that's happening right now.
And we need to be excited as humanity as you guys are researching this, because it's not new info, but it's in a way that we can digest it easily for the entire humanity, because we're having a lot of challenges. What do you think is the best solution for the challenges that we're facing right now for consciousness, man? What do we need to be paying attention?
We basically need to inspire everybody individually to realize, how epic they are. Like each individual, nothing's going to change until individual humans get super inspired and they're like, oh my God, I realize how stuff works. I'm actually very powerful. I could change a lot of stuff, just me.
Wow.
Right? And then an individual person sometimes inspires a bunch of people and they become somebody who's but every single human can be a total visionary genius. They already are. You are an infinite being living inside of an infinite fractal structure called the universe. And you have access to all that information right now from your current location. You don't have to go anywhere. All you have to do is point all your attention into the center of your existence.
Wow.
Wait, isn't that what the Ascended Masters were trying to tell us?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that's exactly how a black hole works. And that's how the physics of the universe. There's only two directions in the universe. There's no up and down. There's no right and left. There's no north and south. There's only in and out.
Imagine how tiny we are, man. I mean, how miracles that just being here and have the consciousness to talk about it. And you guys to have the logic and write mathematics and write about it and speak. I think that's amazing, because
it's all
humanity needs to.
It's there to be measured. You know what I mean? Like, you can do these experiments. You can measure stuff. You can look at relationships between mathematical constants and physics constants and see relationships. Yeah, and by the way, we're not small in the sense that the Planck that makes up the proton is so small that you, as a human being, are halfway in size between the Planck and the universe.
No way.
You're medium-sized. You're not small.
So
you're in the middle.
We're in middle. Huh.
You're in the middle, which is a very convenient place to be able to observe the whole thing, from the really small to the really big. But we were told we were small, equally as far that way as it does looking up. So all this to say, we're in the early days. Like, we invented science a few hundred years ago.
We started researching and knowing, starting to know. Again, right?
We barely know.
Amazing.
We barely know anything. Every time we discover a new thing, we go, oh, how wrong we were. We thought the Earth was flat for a super long time, and we had observational evidence to back it up. We'd stand there on the beach and be like, my hypothesis is the Earth is flat. Okay, let's go look at it. And then you go, yep, that's really flat. Yep, it's flat. And then the reason it's not flat is you can't even visualize how big this surface is, right? If you put a bacteria onto a bowling ball, the bacteria might think the bowling ball is flat too.
True.
Because they're so small, they can't tell that this thing's just like a sphere. There's so many things, man. I was told when I was a kid, the Earth goes around the sun in a circle. It's like, really? The sun isn't moving? It's just sitting there and we just go around and around? No, the sun is moving. So the Earth is making a helix. The Earth makes a spiral. It doesn't make a circle. Are we telling the kids that? I don't think we are.
No.
We can make Avatar. How come? We can make the movie Avatar, and we can't make a basic animation. It's like, okay, kids, get out your iPads, download the animation of your local environment, showing you the relationship of the Earth, the sun, and the galaxy. We're still teaching kids like that the slaves built the pyramids and that the Earth goes around the sun in a circle. It's like, we know that's not correct. Why are we still telling them that?
It's incredible, man. It's so deep and profound. What is some words for our public, for Guatemala and Central America to inspire us?
Well, you guys are like in home base. You guys are like home base, home central. I mean, they just discovered 60,000 structures under the jungle. Who made all that? What did they know? How come they were making all those structures like that?
And how come and why, right?
Right, and you look at the ancient Maya and Aztec cultures and the information and where that they got that information from. They talk all the time about the sun gods. They have all those carvings that kind of look like people with helmets on and all this technology, right? And they're starting to dig that stuff out of the jungle. So, boy, you guys should be inspired as hell. I mean, Guatemala is like the new Egypt.
One. Man, we're excited. I mean, we're a young country, so we're starting to explore. We talk with some explorers from the jungle, and those guys have been there for 40 years, and they say it's amazing. They say, Nando, this is the pyramid, the structure, the volume is huge. The one, the Mirador, it's amazing. And I'm so excited that this is gonna come up all the discoveries, and we're gonna be so excited as Guatemala. I mean, I'm inviting you to come down here whenever you want, so we can check out all the ruins, man, all the structure, megalithic.
You might have Nassim coming with me, because like I know he's excited about someday going into the jungle, hiking in, and finding one of these things that's totally buried in the jungle, and just start digging, to just have a little experience of like maybe discovering something yourself, because 99% of the discoveries in the world come from other people and you hear about it. But there's nothing like digging and finding something.
Good one. I'll go with you guys. You invite me and I go with you guys.
Okay, it's a deal. Sure. We'll wait till things calm down and it's easier to travel, and then we'll start going all over the place again. I was just talking with Robert Edward Grant, who's one of the Residence Academy faculty that I work for. He's excited to try to go back to Egypt. We were in Egypt at this time last year.
Wow, man.
February. And then COVID hit and we got back just in time. But while we were there, Robert the time before we were there. He was in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and he looks down at the sarcophagus and he goes, "What's that?" And he figured out there's an Alpha Omega sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid. You could search that on YouTube and find videos of people checking it out.
I saw it that he saw it. I mean, it's like a little strip. I'm dropping out.
Embossed. It's like carved into the rock. The A is about this big, and the Omega is right next to it. It's about 5.6 inches long. And he measured it very closely. It matches the proportions of the room, which match the proportions of the pyramid. It's super deep. The Great Pyramid encodes the speed of light, phi, pi, Euler constant. All these different mathematical constants are encoded. So is the meter, the cubit, and the foot. The meter, the cubit, and the foot are all related to each other. They're not totally random. It's not some king's foot. It's not, the pharaoh's arm length and all that stuff. That's not. That's a whole nother very, very in-depth topic that gets covered by unified field theory because the geometry of space-time was so accurately portrayed by things like the Great Pyramid.
Sweet. Well, I think we talked about the main topics. Do you want to add something like something new, something cool, or something to recommend?
I would just say everybody should check out this free course at resonancescience.org. It's a unified science course. And then there's elective courses that are from all these different faculty members and different topics. You can check those out too. But our social media has a lot of posts about this stuff. I run the social media for Resonance Science Foundation and Nassim and for Robert Edward Grant and for Alan Turing. So I do a lot of posts. It's like my main job is to help put these guys' information into bite-sized, easily digestible pieces and sprinkle it over time across all social media channels. So people go, "Oh, that's interesting." And then maybe they'll get interested enough that they start to Google and go down the rabbit hole and go do their own research.
I think I was like that. I'm starting to have a little bit, and then I found your Instagram, and I'm like, oh man, this guy is in the zone. So I started to research you, and then I look at everybody, and dude, you guys are doing a great job. Thanks for your time, man, and for your interview.
You.
I would love to have for you, if you have time next. I mean, for a couple of months from now, but sure. welcome to have this media so we can talk about your subject, and all the Guatemalans and Central Americans can have all this value or info that you guys are studying for us. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jamie. It's an honor for me to have in my TV show, but we're gonna keep in contact. So we're gonna do research in your post and keep on informing and give us all that consciousness for us. Thank you very much.